Satellite images are showing something that's taking place all around America. What are we talking about, and is it something serious? Also, we're going to talk about government's new plan of putting data centers in. Not only governments, state governments. Not only state governments, businesses. Because remember, when we're running all this tech, when we're running all this AI, it's needing data. It's needing data centers. It's needing energy. So what's happening? Seems like we're building these extension cords all over America. There's a story where parts of Maryland, parts of Northeast, parts of Pennsylvania, parts of New Jersey, you're starting to see more claims for eminent domain because they're needing this land to utilize for data centers. All the while they're taking thousands upon thousands of farms away from these people. This will keep on happening. And what will happen is you will see a push away from the farm and into, well, we've got to have data centers. We've got to have data centers. I know in our area I've seen more towers, I've seen more centers, I've seen more buildings built on people's land because they can't afford the taxes, they can't afford the amount of money they're spending. So what they do is they sell pieces and portions, they lease out pieces and portions, they put easements, they allow for things to happen on their land. All the while they're giving up their own access. This is where we're at in our nation. We'll discuss that. Also, a farm in North Carolina is getting pushed back for raw milk. Are we seeing the fact of more regulations, even on the states that we consider more eased? I told you here in Mississippi, a very conservative state, we can't sell hardly anything off farm without having some kind of permits or some kind of regulation. Why are we doing this to our local farmers when we're all of a sudden trying to be more independent? It's a big deal. And then I want to talk about Congress. Boy, I know you're sick of me talking about Congress, but Thomas Massie just said something. This proves my point when I say Trump and Elon can work as hard as they want. Doge can work as hard as they want. What happens is Congress just decided not to take the measure up to vote to actually stop the spending. So all that's for naught. We're going to discuss it today. It's amazing how Massie is looked upon as being the bad guy. Massie's the only one wanting to vote for it to stop the spending. Mike Johnson just decided to go on a 4-day weekend for vacation. Let's dive into these stories today and a few more. This video starts right now. Hey guys, welcome to the channel today. Thank you so very much for being here. If you are new, we humbly thank you for being here. Please subscribe if you like the content. Remember the vlog channel, there's a new video coming out today, Life with Kobe Mack. We talk about what is happening with all our cows bellowing around, so you'll be able to see that. A lot is taking place on our farm. The whole point of the vlog channel is to simply show you how we live sustainable, how we prep, how we raise our family, because that is key. The reason I talk so much and do this channel is because I want to take care of the things that we have, and that leads right to the first two stories. There's two reports, one coming out of North Carolina that's a war on the farm. It says this was shared by Hart Farmstead. It says, here's a petition that has been assembled against SB 639. 639 was something they were trying to pass against herd sharing and raw milk. Listen to this. It says, this bill will repeal previously approved legislation that grants us our rights to pet milk permits and potentially even herd share agreements. Petitions with over 1,000 signatures really start to get attention of representatives. So if you could, please sign this, because micro dairies and families need to support their homes and their livelihoods. Raw milk and anything off the farm is under attack. So we have states who are considered more conservative, more libertarian, that are still putting in practices to really hold down the small farm. I told you Mississippi, just in my personal state and with me personally at my farm, I can't sell a lot off my farm for regulation laws, and even a super conservative state. I mean, we have a super majority in our state, but they're not going to take up things like raising chickens and raising cattle and raising sheep and raising vegetables and selling them straight off your farm. They have cottage food laws, which does help in some cases. I mean, they've raised that up, so it helps us sell our vegetables. But when it comes to our meat, when it comes to our dairy, it's a non-event. So we need more conservative states actually standing up for the micro dairies, the small farmers, the homesteaders, the sustainable living individuals like myself and like this other guy, because what happens is they may stand up for big ag and they're saying they're supporting farmers, but truth be told, supporting someone that has 10,000 acres is one thing. Supporting the guy that has 5 is even better. That's how actually we heal America. So what we need to see is more people standing up for their beliefs in sustainable practices and independent living. Please, if you know your state senators, this is a state issue. We need to go to our states and say, listen, why is it your right to say 2 adults cannot make a decision on someone buying stuff off a farm? We allow our children to make decisions that are life-altering, but we can't allow 2 adults to make a decision on if they want to buy milk for their dogs or share a cow. That's a little crazy, isn't it? So we need to make sure that we're understanding that the laws that we're actually getting wrote on us are things that are benefiting us and not taking away. And that brings me up to another state situation. This is an email I received, and again, we'll keep the names anonymous, but this was sent to me. It says here, we need help. Maryland homeowners and farms need help getting information out to the entire U.S. population. This seems to be happening everywhere. Farms are being destroyed, wetlands are everywhere, rights of the people are being stripped, and our voices are silent, just like I told you about the raw milk situation. Here's what's happening in a nutshell. A New Jersey company is trying to install a 70-foot long transmission power line. It will cut through 3 counties, Baltimore, Carroll, and Frederick. 1,200 acres are protected ag lands, wetlands, homes, historical buildings, loss of native wildlife. They will cut it through 2 football fields wide to simply get to the other area. It says there's really no benefit to Maryland. It's an extension cord to Pennsylvania and goes back to the data centers of Virginia. Now, why am I bringing this up? The reason I'm bringing this up is because, look, let me see if I can show you. Before I bought the secondary land, so we live here, I don't know if you can tell, right over one of my gray barns, there's an extension line going right there, a power line. Now, that was done way before I owned this place. And that was kind of my line. I really didn't have, I mean, it was the easement, and I didn't really have control of the easement and also the land on the other side. I decided to buy the land on the other side to control the easement, because what was happening is I had random people trespassing on my property. They had easement rights. They had ways they could cut my chains because I didn't have the other side. So they were like, well, you're the one that wrote the agreement, which I didn't, and this has been even before I was born. But they were putting this transmission line in, and they're putting more and more and more on that one piece of property. So I wanted to buy the other side, so therefore they couldn't have access to the other side and just keep buying more land to do what they wanted with it. Now, do I like that power line on the south end of my property? No. I don't believe anything should have easements. But I will say this. I bought the other side to make it where I control every aspect of it. And there's security gates and security panels on just about every part of the fence. So I'm going to know who's on my property, unlike what relationship we used to have. We cannot keep allowing this to take place. Well, the more that we see these data centers going up, the more we're going to see easements coming in. They're talking about, not far from me, there's a highway, and it's not a big highway, but it's interstate. It's not a interstate. But it does travel from state lines. And they've been discussing, well, we're going to think about making that an actual interstate, you know, like a true national highway. Well, yes, it would bring economy. And so everybody in the city is like, oh yeah, let's do it. Everybody in the county is like, oh yeah, let's do it. This is going to bring great tax bases. But what they don't realize is that interstate would take another eminent domain portion, because it's only basically a 2-lane highway. So now they're wanting to make it a 4 with all the law and legal requirements, which makes it, guess what? Another 50 to 100 foot outside of what they already have on each side of it. That goes into people's land. Now, why is this a big deal? Because the innovation, data centers, power lines, gas, that's all great. But when they start taking away from the lands that we need to farm, the lands that we actually paid for, the lands that I've been paying taxes on, I know, the lands that you've been paying taxes on, and all of a sudden, because they have big lawyers and big money and big business behind it, and big government behind it, they take your land. The original owner of this, there's a story, and it said that he fought them tooth and nail. And the guy was a lawyer that originally owned all that land. And he could not win the battle. So ultimately he had to sign an easement deal. About 3 miles south of me, there's a guy who's putting up a new tower on his property. And he said, I had to do it because they wanted easement rights. He said, I tried to find them, couldn't get it. And so now they're gonna lease the property. And he said, to be honest with you, my farm's struggling. I probably need the money. You see how taxes and property rights and property taxes and the problems on the regulation side can cause people to make decisions that are not the best decisions. And those decisions, even by conservative governments and by state governments, can put easements on your property. Eminent domain and taking people's land is completely, and should be tyrannical and illegal. People don't realize that America, the government owns the most land in America. It's amazing how they want to still take our land for eminent domain, to put all these data centers, to put all these thoroughfares and these right-of-ways, when really they could probably find other ways, especially when the fact of all the waste and money that we've done in this country. You could just go around, go underneath, go somewhere else, but not on my property. And on top of that, just like the North Carolina situation I was just talking about with raw milk. So you wonder why food will have to be made in petri dishes? It's because the war on the farmer is not just on his taxes, it's not just on his animals and on what he sells with his animals, it's his land too. This is a big deal. We need to pay attention. This is happening in the Northeast. I just gave you a story in North Carolina, in Maryland, Virginia, and Pennsylvania. Is this really what we want to see? More of our farmland and more of our lands that we need to raise food is going for homes, development, but not only that, eminent domain. And when you fight the government and big business, you will not win. And that leads me again to waste, fraud, and abuse. Again, just stresses me out, man. Stresses me out. Listen to this. It's from Thomas Massey. It says, this would tell you everything you need to know. Congress was scheduled to vote on the rescissions this week to cut the waste that DOJ found, but the votes were quietly canceled. USAID and other programs like PBS and NPR were the ones being targeted. Do you remember? Trump said he wants to defund these. Trump wants to defund USAID, take it into Secretary of State under Marco Rubio, PBS and NPR. That's things that everybody's been applauding. Well, guess flipping what? Mike Johnson just says, you know what? We're not gonna vote on it. So all the things that DOJ has worked on, all the things that Trump wants, what you're seeing is it's not gonna happen because they're going to push against it because it is taking away from their pocketbooks. Listen to what it says. Again, why I love Thomas Massey. In early 2025, the leaders tentatively plan to vote on what President Trump wanted by the proposed package of May 5th, 2025. This package is expected to cut $9.3 billion that they found that waste, complete and utter fraud, and complete and utter waste of our money. Just 9.3 of the $383 billion that DOJ found. So they won't even meet on 9.3 to cut. This is why you cannot trust Congress. Thomas Massey just let everyone know that Speaker Johnson quietly canceled the vote that would make DOJ cuts permanent. Congress and Johnson will not do it. Midterms are coming. Sadly, the midterms are going to probably turn it back to Democrats because Republicans have done absolutely nothing with their power other than take advantage of the American people. Another article, it says, Speaker Johnson just canceled a crucial vote that slashes $9.3 billion in just waste, including 8.3 to USAID and a bloated budget for 1.1 for PBS and NPR, which absolutely pushes out government propaganda. The Trump-backed DOJ plan led by Elon Musk explodes the pork and spineless rhinos, and guess what? They quietly killed the bill this week. Did you know that? But what they're not telling you too is when he killed the bill, they decided on another 4-day a 4-day weekend off. Vacation for Friday and Monday along with the weekend. That's why you gotta vote. That's why you gotta get rid of these people. That's why the little guy, the little farmer, the little homesteader, the little homeowner has to stand up because these people will keep taking advantage of our money. Let's go to this next story. And I thought this was a big story that, again, nobody's talking about. Why are we worried about India, Pakistan, or Ukraine, Russia, or whatever else? Listen to this. Satellite images uncover China's buildup in Cuba triggering U.S. spy concerns. China's aggressive push into Cuba is sounding the alarm bells, with fears of covert surveillance operations targeting the United States. So this is why Trump has been so hard on China. And nobody wants to talk about actually the dangers of what they're doing. They now have bases back in Cuba. You talk about a Cuban Missile Crisis with someone like Russia or the Soviet Union. We actually have our biggest trade partner, which we're trying to work through. Now we have tariff war with. But one of the biggest players in the world, bigger than Russia, has now got places all over China, all over Cuba. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 places they're using that is represented in that picture right there. I'm gonna blow it up on the screen so you can see it. But it says the CCP poisonous alliance with Cuba has posed significant threats to U.S. national security for decades. However, they are growing more and more to be in the Western Hemisphere. One was the Panama Canal that we stopped, but the other is Cuba. They want to be at our back door. It says they have adversarial relationships with the U.S. and all the while Cuba is allowing them to set up shop right next to us to be our neighbor. I don't know about you, that's pretty fearful. That's why I want to make sure that this tariff agreement and this trade war actually happens. Because what they're saying is there's people rioting the streets in China. It's causing a pandemonium there. The more pressure that Trump puts on and this administration puts on China, I think it's actually going to benefit us. And it could benefit us with stuff like this, like the Belt and Road Initiative with Panama. The fact that they control the ports. Well, on top of that, I mean, they're literally sitting at Florida's back door. Are we really wanting them sitting that close, getting spy apparatus information from us through flying over America? We have to pay attention to the story. Keep your eyes on this. No one's talking about the Cuban situation, but China is putting more and more and more infrastructure in Cuba. We need to quit worrying about India, Pakistan. We need to quit worrying about the China-Taiwan land and start worrying about the Cuban land that's literally sitting right next to us. Not only just sitting next to us, but literally confirmed spying on Americans. One more story I want to hit, and this is again dealing with China and dealing with the shortages, is this countdown to shortages. Last cargo ships from China arrive at the U.S. ports just yesterday and today. U.S. tariffs for most China goods are currently holding 145%, and it's applied to goods that were it's not in sea, but basically those ones that come from sea are actually all making port now. This means everything from here on out will be either hit with tariffs or you will see a decline in all the shipments coming. Parts of the U.S. is saying that this can potentially be worse than COVID when it comes to the shortages and things coming in. Now, please understand, the things that we hear are going to mean to make us fear, because rhinos and Democrats, and for majority of Americans, they want to be able to have the access to cheap goods. There was a Democratic congressman that was yelling yesterday at Scott Bessent about how for 40 years we've had a trade deficit. Why would we not want that? And the Congress has allowed it to happen. That means Congress knew what was going on. Give the power back to Congress. Trump has no power with tariffs. Basically what he's saying is we're stupid, we're ignoramuses. For the last 40 years, Congress has allowed the American people to actually get ripped off with their own tax bases. But why are you trying to change it now, Scott Bessent and Trump? We want to go back to where we just lose money each and every month, each and every year. We want to add to our trade deficit because we want cheap junk from China instead of Americans actually going to work. That's actually what he said, because he literally stated that he wants to go back to the policy of a trade deficit. Literally is what he stated. Nothing's been a problem for that long, so let's go back to a trade deficit. I think what Trump is doing is not only playing hardball with trade tariffs. It has nothing to actually do with the tariffs, I think. Now, will we stick the tariffs on them if it sticks and that makes it a little bit more equal? Yes. The whole point is the trade, the adversarial relationship, the negotiations like the Panama Canal, the negotiations like the Cuban situation, the negotiations taking place where we become, yes, we can be adversaries and not like each other, but we can do it in a way that both respects each other to where we keep peace. That's the key with what I think Trump and Bessent are trying to do. But you know, when you have Congress who are saying we'd rather have a trade deficit, which means takes your taxpayer dollars just so you can buy a $5.99 shirt from Walmart, you better pay attention, because actually what they're doing is they're literally not leaving you a legacy for your children. They're burning America's legacy down. The shortages are just temporary, guys. Think about it. Me and Misty were talking about this yesterday. We were sitting, I took her on a lunch date, and we were sitting at a restaurant, and I said, you know, just think, 4 to 5 years ago, people were panicking because she had to go, I think she had to go to Walmart and buy like paper towel or something like that. And I said, you know, what's so crazy is we don't shop a lot in Walmart. And she said, I gotta go, dreaded going. And she said they were doing some road work, again, talking about easements, funny, government, but they were doing some road work and wasting tax dollars. And she said, I just hate to get out there and go do it. And I said, you know, think of 4 or 5 years ago, people were fighting over toilet paper. And I said, you know what though? Nobody talks about that now. They literally still go into Walmart and buy their toilet paper and buy their food and all that. This too shall pass. Americans are resilient. The thing is, we need to learn our lessons and make sure that we're not trusting the same people that's putting us in the same stupid hole that keeps putting us in the hole, and we keep electing them to put us in the hole. I think what I love about Trump is that he has this no non-care nonsense policy now where he's like, you know, forget it. I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do if you like it or not. Even at the behest of him losing money, even at the behest of him losing popularity, even at the behest of the media just dogging him out, even at the behest that the world seems like it's going crazy. All that's really untrue, but what I'm saying is he's willing to sacrifice all that to bring back American legacy. Because he's probably thinking about his kids and grandkids. He's probably thinking about his great-grandkids, because he's older. His time on America's earth, his time on earth is coming to a halt. And so these 70 and 80-year-olds and 60-year-olds that's sitting in Congress, they need to quit worrying about themselves, start worrying about their children, their grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Because what they're doing is they're not leaving a legacy, they're leaving a liability. And until we figure out people like Johnson needs to be thrown out, I think the reason he was elected as the speaker is because he's a weakling. I'm sorry I'm saying that, but it's truth. You need a juggernaut in there, and you need somebody who's willing to bring the votes up, codify the cuts, codify the executive orders, and let's change America for the best. Let's be resilient, prep on, and get these people out of office that shouldn't be there. Guys, let me know your thoughts on today's video. God bless.